Alright, if you're an off-road big bike rider, you know one of the biggest pains in the ass is to replace or repair a tube off-road. So that's why today's video is going to cover a tubeless mod for less than 45 bucks. So when doing this mod, there's something very important you need to consider as the rider. The wheels. Are the wheels capable themselves of doing the tubeless mod, or are they meant for a tubed system? And if they're meant for a tube system, are you okay? Are you comfortable with putting a tubeless tire on this? And what I mean by that is the rim will have a small bead on this inside track right here to help keep that tire on the rim in the event that you lose air pressure. With the Africa Twin, the rear rim does have this bead, however the front does not. So there's already multiple people out there on Africa Twins and other big bikes that are running a tubeless system, whether it's the actual tubeless or the Outex kit or the 3M DIY that we're doing here with success. So I'm not too worried about it, but that is a very important consideration that you need to kind of take some time to think about before doing this mod. This super simple mod should be able to be accomplished by anybody who's riding a big bike off-road. It only requires 3 parts. You need the 3M tape. There's 2 different styles, multiple widths. That's going to be up to you and your rims on which one you need for that. You need some silicone, easily picked up from your local hardware store, Home Depot, Lowe's, yada yada. And you need the valve stems. The valve stems I'm using are from NAPA. They do not require you to drill your rims like most of the other posts online. The part numbers for all this is linked below in the description. Use these links as, well, you don't have to use these links, but use these part numbers as the part numbers I have found for the valve stems online. They were actually incorrect. When I went to NAPA, they couldn't find them, and once we swapped some numbers around, they were there. So use the part number below for the valve stems from NAPA. The valve stems were like $4 or $5 each. Silicone, a couple bucks for 1 tube should do it. And then the 3M tape, I want to say was 15 to 20 bucks. So once you add all that up, you're in the neighborhood of around $45 or less. Alright, so if it looks like I've died between takes or between shots, it's because I'm super sick, or I'm just getting over being super sick. So between camera angles or takes, I'm coughing up a lung and blowing all sorts of nastiness out of my nose. But getting back to the wheel, the first thing we need to do is clean the rim. There's all this dust and dirt and stuff like that. Anything that's left on the rim is going to prevent that tape from sealing properly and sealing that air inside the rim. So the first thing you want to do, scrub the crap out of the wheel. Some Brillo pads, stuff like that, and just really clean every little nook and cranny you possibly can. Alright, so now that you have your rim cleaned and dried is very important. You want to make sure you're getting all the water out from around each one of the nipples. It might be a good idea to also take some alcohol or something like that and clean the rim while you're at it. Make sure there's no grease or fingerprints or oils or anything crazy on it. But now that we're past this, time for the silicone. All I'm doing is applying a blob around each one of the nipples. Nothing fancy, nothing crazy, overzealous. There, go to the next. And basically do that all the way around. So now that there's a glob of silicone on each one of the nipples, I'm just going to take my finger and kind of work it around, make sure there's a good seal all the way around. Alright, so it's the next day. We've let the silicone set all night, and now we're going to install the 3M sealing tape. I picked up the motorcycle valve stems from NAPA this morning. 90426, that's the part number. These will slide into the rim without any drilling. So this is the NAPA part number you want to get. I want to say it was like $4 each, but once again, I'll put that down below. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is
get started putting on the 3M tape. Alright, so when you're applying the 3M sealing tape, you want to start between the spokes. You don't want to go over a spoke. You might even want to cut it kind of at an angle to make sure you're getting the best sealing possible. Might be a good idea to start near here. We're going to kind of start a couple spokes above where the valve stem goes. What we're going to do is we're going to put in one layer starting here at an angle all the way around the center, covering the valve stem hole, and we'll worry about getting the valve stem in there later on. Alright, so with the 3M sealing tape, you can tell this is a 2.5 inch wide tape I have. It perfectly covers the spoke nipples and the center of the rim. You went 3 inch, you'd be a little wider, you'd be up on the edge, and if you went anything less, 2 inch, 1.5 inch, obviously you might not have enough room to cover the nipples for the spokes. So when you're doing this, measure your rim, make sure you get a tape that's wide enough to be able to cover the surface, but not too wide to be out of control and just all over everything. Alright, so my first little attachment point, I cut it at a slight angle, and now it's adhered there pretty well. Keith's going to be pulling on one side of the rim, I'm going to be pulling on the tape to make sure we get a nice, tight fit all the way around. Alright, another quick note. The backing on this 3M tape, it can come off and it's not sticky right here. So if you remove the backing as you're rolling it out, it'll kind of help the tape flex a little more. So pull the backing off, pull the tape, and it'll help you pull it nice and tight or stretch it nice and tight to get it in the valley of the rim and around those nipples. If you leave this on, it's going to kind of prevent it from stretching and pulling the way it needs to. Alright, pull it. Alright, you ready? Alright, so where the two pieces came together, I cut a little small strip of the sealing tape, 3M sealing tape, and I applied it over that to make sure there was no air that would get in between that seam of those two pieces. And next, all we gotta do is install the valve stem. So the next thing we're gonna do is install the valve stem. To install the valve stem, we obviously need to find the hole where it's at. Take a fresh razor blade, because this stuff's kind of difficult to cut, and cut around where the valve stem's at. There we go. Got the hole. Alright, so when installing the valve stem, you have the valve stem itself with a little rubber sealing gasket down there. And it comes with 2 nuts and a washer that are going to go on the outside of the rim. You can do this whatever way you feel comfortable with. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this valve stem, I'm going to install it in the valve stem hole, put the washer on, put the nut on. I'm going to tighten it down this way. So this is going to seal the sealing tape between the valve stem and the rim itself. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take another piece of that sealing tape and go around this, kind of hopefully creating another barrier. We'll see how well this works. Alright, now we're going to take another piece of the sealing tape, applying it right over here. Making sure it's got a very good seal with the valve stem. Just working any air out as we go around. So I believe that's sealed pretty well. Take my X-Acto knife. We're cutting against a nice metal surface, so you can kind of go a little harder. All we're trying to do is just allow air to pass through it, but keep it as much sealed as possible around. I think that should do it. Alright, so the rear rim is done. We have the 3M sealing tape all the way around. We have the seam covered with more 3M sealing tape. Then we have the valve stem installed on the outside of the 3M sealing tape, kind of sandwiching it between the rim and the valve stem. And then we also have another small patch of 3M sealing tape around the valve stem itself, hopefully adding a little more sealing protection around that area. The sealing works really well. It looks like it's a little white right here, but that's just because of the silicone that's underneath there. I can assure you that it is sealed really, really, really well. We're going to go onto the front rim, knock that one out real quick, and then head to the shop, install the tires, and see if these actually hold air. Alright, as you can see, the tire is mounted. From what we can tell, it is holding air. I've checked it multiple times and it hasn't decreased at all. I've checked it with two different gauges. Both of them are both indicating the same. But we're going to do one last check to make sure this thing is solid, and that is the dunk test, the water dunk test. We're going to set this in the pool of water, not all the way up obviously because of the hub and the bearings, but enough to submerge the nipples and the spokes to see if any air is leaking out. So that's what we're going to do right now. All right, tire's going in. All right, so there you have it. We just confirmed that there is no air leakage. We checked it with two different pressure gauges that both confirmed no air loss. And then we did the submerge check. We checked all the nipples completely submerged underwater with no air leakage from anything. Not from the bead, not from the nipples, nothing. These are holding air just fine. 45 bucks, maybe less, depending on if you got silicone at home, if you get a good deal on the NAPA valve stems. But for a $45 DIY tubeless mod or tubeless conversion, this is a very, very good idea. If you're okay with the issues with the front rim and you're okay doing the work yourself, this was not that hard. If you own a big bike and you're taking it off-road, you should have the know-how to be able to do this. If you can turn wrenches a little bit, change your own oil, you should be able to do this. A very, very easy thing. The number one thing I would say, you need a buddy to hold the rim for you. That was it. So comment, like, just subscribe. I'm definitely interested to hear your thoughts on this. So comment below your thoughts, subscribe, give me some ideas of what other stuff you guys want to look forward to. And I appreciate you guys for watching. Thanks.